Okay, so today I gathered everybody here for a community presentation, and this topic is specific for getting up and down from the floor, because getting up and down from the floor has a very high correlation with living very long. So I titled this presentation, I've Fallen and I Can't Get Up, and that stems from the 1980 commercial, I've fallen and I can't get up. So the objectives for today include, by the end of the presentation, you'll be able to basically see who is at risk for falling, some risk factors for falling, if you're at risk for falling, and then also being able to how to get up and down from the floor. So who is falling? Falls are probably the most common cause of death in the whole United States. Individuals who are about 60 to 100 years old, I guess, mostly 80 years old, they're really around the age that you see the most amount of falls. Gender plays a big role as well, because women who have osteoporosis, if they fall, they're more at risk for developing a hip fracture, and that also can lead to death. If you live alone, if you're married, you actually have a less chance of falling, and you live longer if you're married, as compared to someone who lives alone. Comorbidities, if you have depression, hypertension, diabetes, any of those comorbidities also play a big role in falling. Any medication, specifically antidepressants, they play a big role in falling. And lastly, poor economic status, just because you don't have good judgment of how to maneuver in your home and how to react when you're falling. So where have you fallen, right? So mostly falls across the United States, when you take a statistical measure, it's mainly indoors and in your home. Mostly the bathroom is the number one rated most common area for falling. So that's a big factor when you're thinking about, are there too many rugs? Is there a shower curtain? Is the floor too slippery? Do you have a rubber mat in the shower that's going to help you prevent from falling? And you want to consider, are you at risk for falling? So am I falling? People who are falling, they have poor balance. They may be dizzy. They may have the comorbidities that I said previously. Walking speed has a big impact on falling as well. So the faster you walk, the less likely you are to fall. Poor reactive balance. Do you have good judgment? If you are in the supermarket and someone nudges into you, can you step appropriately and catch your fall? Can you do that? And then also strength and balance play a big role. Specifically, how much length you have in your calves, how much length you have in the front of your hips. Those play a big role in your balance. And then, the more length you have in your hips, the less likely you are to prevent from falling. All right, so those frequent fallers, the facts are about 47% of older adults who fall, they need help getting back up. So individuals who are unable to perform the floor to stand transfers, they require assistance, and they require their arms to get back up. High mortality rate is reported with a lower sit to rise score. So most of the time, if you time someone getting up and down from the floor, the longer it takes them to get up and down from the floor, the higher mortality rate there is. Again, like I said, marital status plays a large role in floor to stand transfers as well. And what are the risks? So if you have decreased physical fitness, you don't really work out every day, more likely to fall, more likely to die early. It also increases hospital admissions, right? So the more you fall, the more hospital admissions that you're going to have within that year. Most of the time, if someone falls within 1 year, they're likely to have another fall or 2 or 3 or 4 within that same year, leading to death. And increased risks for non-elective surgeries as well as traumatic brain injury. So if you do fall, you're more at risk for fracturing your hip or fracturing your shoulder, or maybe hitting your head, and that leads to a worse injury, and that has a big impact on your family and caregiver assistance. And can you even afford caregiver assistance? What does your insurance cover? So I've fallen, now what? What do I do? Right? I've fallen, do I go to the doctor? Do I go to the hospital? Should I get screened for an x-ray? Should I get an MRI? What do I do? What's the process? So falling is an elder motor milestone. You know, we think about babies and how they move and their motor milestones, but we don't really think about what an adult does as they get older, right? We have to think about, you know, as I age, what happens to my body? And getting up and down the floor has a big impact on that. So who should be tested? People who are 60 and older should be tested. You know, how can they get up and down from the floor, number one, and number two, how fast can they get up and down from the floor? Who can assess this limitation? Well, physical therapists. They're probably they're the gatekeepers to this. They are the ones that have all the abilities to measure this and refer out or tell you what you need to do, what exercises you need to do, and should you go to the gym, should you see a PT, should you see a doctor? So that plays a big role. And how do they do this? Well, they use different measures, right? So if you were to see a therapist, so let's say you did fall, and your question, do I need therapy? Yes, you absolutely need therapy. You need to see a physical therapist. And how would you know if you're at risk for falling? Well, they do balance assessments. So they see how good your balance is, and they use specific measures to see how fast you walk. You know, what your perception of falling is. Are you fearful of falling? Because that also plays a big role. And depression. As well as timed floor to stand transfers, like I said, how fast you can get up and down from the floor. So what will therapy teach you? Well, therapy will teach you about your balance. Is your balance good? Is it not so good? Safety. Safety is number one, right? Maybe if you're falling, how do you hold your head just in case you don't develop a worsening injury? And awareness and judgment. You know, is having a bunch of different mats on the floor that have non-grip stickers underneath, is that safe? Probably not. So therapy will teach you those different strategies to increase your safety within your home so you prevent falls. And of course, how do you get up and down from the floor? So attached in your pamphlets, I have images of myself showing you how you get up and down from the floor. So it is a 9-step process, and I also included different strategies that if you were to crawl and you need assistance from a chair or a couch. So those are some strategies and techniques that you can practice at home and time yourself. And then that will determine, should I see a therapist? Yeah, maybe you should. And the biggest thing is you just got to keep on moving. You got to continue to move. You got to increase your physical fitness, and hopefully you'll live a long life. So the last piece is resources. So I included in the PowerPoint and in your pamphlets different physical therapy clinics that will help you with this. So in conclusion, yes, 47% of people who cannot get up from the floor, they need external assistance. They need to crawl to a couch or a chair to get up. If you're unable to get up from the floor within a certain time or at all, it increases your mortality rate. And lastly, physical therapy is essential, especially in this case, because we want to move, we want to be better, we want to live longer lives. And there's my references. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
No. How long should it take to get up from the floor?
Less than 10 seconds. Well, actually, according to one study, 8.8 seconds is the cutoff for aging adults. Obviously, as you get older, it's going to take more time, but for your age, someone who's around 60, 65, between that range, I would say less than 10 seconds at minimum. At maximum, sorry. And yeah, any other questions?
That's good.
So self-explanatory. It's perfect.
Yeah?
So,
All right.
Awesome.
Cool.